Hey team, today we're going to break down the 10 C's of survival to see if it's enough to keep you alive or to get you killed. Team, and of course the 10 C's of survival is a list that Dave Canterbury had come up with years ago. Started with 5, ended up with 10, and I think he added 5 more. And so we're going to kind of try to break these things down. I'm going to let you know on the front end, I do have a problem with the 10 C's of survival. But I want to also let you know that I understand where he was coming from, right? It's called putting handles on things, if that makes sense. So I develop an acronym, I develop a way of teaching and helping others understand some basic principles and concepts. So that's a good thing, right? Because if it enables somebody else to be able to pick up what I'm trying to put down, right? You've got some handles on it and you can pick it up, you can carry it and run with it. It's a good starting point, it's a good launching point, it's a good conversation piece. But there is a serious problem with the 10 C's that we need to break down, and we'll do that after we look at each item. Right, and so these 10 C's are generally speaking items that may be harder to reproduce in nature. And on that note, I'm going to tell you, when it comes to investing your money into survival items or anything that you want to add into your kit, consider whether the item is disposable or if it's non-disposable, right? So if something is disposable, I'm not going to invest a lot of money into it because I know that it's going to get used and then it's gone. Other items, like maybe a good fixed blade knife, I may want to invest a little bit more money into because I intend to have this thing for a long time. But once you get sucked into starting buying stuff, man, I know tons of dudes who have like hundreds of knives, so don't think that you're going to get the one knife that's going to last you forever either. But just bear that in mind, right? If an item is going to break, if you're going to lose it, if somebody's going to steal it, if it's just going to get misplaced, if it's going to get used because it is disposable, don't spend a lot of your hard-earned money on that stuff. Invest the money in things that's going to last a lifetime. And those first 5 C's are what's talked and thought of about to be the most important of the 5 C's. We're going to break that down as well. So we have a cover. In this case, it's a 10 by 10 tarp made by Light Fighter. I have some cordage behind me using it as a ridge line. And then we have a cutting tool, a combustible device, and a container. In this case, my container is a stainless steel single-walled bottle, right? And this thing, of course, can be used to not only transport water, which I have, but it can also be used to purify water, to cook in. I can use it to char materials in order to help start a fire. So all kinds of good stuff with having a container. And that's a true statement, right? You need a container. Everybody has their knives of their choice. The one that I've been carrying for the past 5 or 6 years, I guess since my last deployment. Has it been that long since I've deployed? Crazy how fast time by. I guess it's been about 3 years since I've deployed last. But it's an SE4, right? And I like SE. They're not overpriced. Good steel, good material. It is a fixed blade knife with a full tang, and it has a 90-degree spine on it so that you can use it to strike on a ferro rod. Speaking of ferro rods, I have this one here that was sent in to me. Man, I'm so stoked about this thing. It is super nice with a handmade handle. And of course it has some paracords. It has some extra cordage on it. And then a little striker on it as well. Got to be able to make a fire. And you know, with a good ferro rod, you should be able to get, you know, tens of thousands of strikes on this thing. But again, this is one of the things, like, don't go buy a $40 ferro rod thinking that it's going to be better or worse than a $10 or $15 ferro rod. So, you know, I would recommend having a ferro rod that is nice and long. That way you have more of a surface area to be able to pull it across your striker. You look down in the description below, you'll find links to all of these items and more. Right, and that rounds out the bottom 5, or the first 5 of the 10 C's. The next 5 are a cloth bandana, a cloth needle, some cargo tape, compass, and a candling device. So for a candling device, aka a flashlight, a moonbeam, a headlamp, some sort of device that's going to throw out some light for you at night, whether you're going to use it for just so you can see at night or what others can see for you, so some good passive signaling, right? So candling device. You got to have some sort of duct tape. In this case, I just have some Gorilla tape. There's not much to say about tape. Like, it sticks to things, but it can be used for all sorts of purposes, right? Whether it's first aid, I can use it to extend a flame, I can use it to make repairs on different items. So it's super important, super handy to have, and very extremely difficult, but not impossible to replicate in nature. You know, having a needle on you can be life-changing, whether or not we're talking about just pulling a splinter out, making some repairs. I can strip some of the inner guts out of my cordage to use to stitch, to also make repairs. I can also use it, of course, to make a field expedient compass as well. Right, and speaking of compasses, of course, you know my favorite is the USGI Lens Addict compass. Man, this thing is bomb-proof, and it has served me well for over 20 stinking years, going on a long time. I've been using these things. But being able to navigate and maintain your mobility, which is king, is critically important. Of course, I got my shemagh here, which can be used again for any number of field expedient means, whether it's helping to maintain a core body temperature by using it as a scarf. I can use it as a filter if I'm trying to collect some water. I can use it to extend some flame if I need to. I can use it to make a carrying device because it's nice and large. You know, there's just all kinds of uses that you can use with any large cloth bandana. Now that we talked about what the 10 C's are and why it's not a bad thing, right, to be able to put some handles on things for some folks to pick up, now we need to break down what the big issue is that Stoker has with the 10 C's. So is the 10 C's enough to enable you to survive? To be honest with you, you can't answer that question because a situation is going to dictate. With just these 10 items that we have, there are a number of situations that we could survive in. But depending on the climate, depending on the location, depending on the weather, depending on how contested the environment is, these 10 C's are not going to be enough to get you by. You may need more. Not only that, but are you skilled enough to be able to use each one for more than its intended and specific purpose? I can take a container and I can use it to hold water in, but do I have the skills to be able to use that in order to be able to purify water? Can I build a fire? I have a ferro rod, but can I use it? I have a knife, but do I know what to do with it other than just to slice my own little fingers? So it's not enough just to have items. It's not enough to have a kit stored in your car, stored in your bag, stored in your house, stored at work, stored wherever. You have to get out and you have to start using these things, and you have to rehearse. You have to master your craft. You have to get better at what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to be a liability to yourself and to others around you. Team, just a few thoughts on the 10 C's, what they are, what they can be good for, and whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. Man, I'm looking forward to hearing and seeing your comments down below. That way we can continue to keep this conversation rolling. I appreciate all you guys, man. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.